This video is for beginners who have no experience with .NET Core and Angular. I believe it can serve as a good starting point for learning these technologies. The code was originally created for a job interview, which I failed. I was told my code was challenging to follow, which I didn't expect. To be honest, I think my code is too simple and admittedly not robust enough, but at least it's functional and easy to deploy. I hope this project can now serve as a tutorial. Let's start by setting up the development environment for .NET Core and Angular. First, you need to install Node.js, and then install the Angular CLI. Please visit my GitHub page to find the link to the Node.js download page. Crucially, remember to select the LTS, long-term support, version, not the current version. Remember to download the link to .msi file for Windows x64. Node.js is crucial for single-page applications, SPAs, built with frameworks like React, Vue, or Angular. Becoming familiar with Node.js is essential, as it's the starting point for all these environments. After the installation is complete, you must verify it by typing the following commands. Node v npmv. After you verify the Node.js installation, you can copy the command from my GitHub page to install the Angular CLI. Once the Angular CLI is installed, you can create a new Angular application by typing ng-new your application name. However, for today, let's just focus on getting my existing code up and running first. Next, you need to download the database backup file from my GitHub link. After downloading the .7z file, extract the included link to .back file. Use SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS, to restore the database backup. While the restore process itself shouldn't be complicated, the most crucial step for the code to work is to run the post database restore script. Remember to restore the database using the From Device option and select the link to .back file. After restoring the database, the next critical step is to run the script from my GitHub that grants the necessary access rights to the predefined database user. I suspect this missing access rights grant script might be why my code was challenging to follow for some. However, I expect a standard MS SQL administrator would know how to perform this permission granting via the Management Studio UI rather than relying on a script. The script is necessary because the database user itself is not created automatically when you restore the database on a new system. We need to run the script to grant ownership of the database to a newly created user, whose details are already defined within the link to .back file. If time permits, I will show you more details and explain the script's function. Next, let's start by performing a git clone on 3 different GitHub repositories. The .NET Core backend application, the Angular frontend application, the legacy Angular and .NET Core application integrated together. Next, let's start by setting up the Angular frontend. Since you have the latest Angular CLI installed, you can initialize the package dependencies using the command provided in my GitHub repository. Because the code was recently updated, an npm audit fix should not be necessary. Finally, use VS Code to run the application in debug mode. You can now open the backend and run it in debug mode. The solution file is compatible with the latest Visual Studio, e.g., 2022-2026. You can start the application by pressing F5 immediately, as the app settings JSON file has a hard-coded connection string for easy setup. You will see a Swagger interface appear, which reflects the REST API-like format I used in the recent update. Let's begin by testing a single REST API function, specifically the book all endpoint, which returns all borrowed records. If we receive a JSON output, it confirms that the database connection from the ASP.NET Core application to the database was successful. Let's move on to testing the front end. Pressing F5 in VS Code will automatically open the application in the Chrome browser. You can set a breakpoint on any line of code by pressing F9. The web design and layout are admittedly awful, but its primary purpose is simply to demonstrate the integration of the Angular frontend with the .NET Core backend and the database connection via Microsoft Entity Framework. The system is designed to simulate a basic library book borrow and return workflow by logging the borrow and return times for internal staff. I expect a typical programmer would find it easy to modify. Now, let's start the installation of one of my legacy .NET Core applications, which is bundled with Angular in one project. If the Angular runtime is installed, go to the client app folder, which is the Angular source folder, and type npmi to install dependencies. As shown in the screen, we may have security issue over time. You can type npm audit fix to update the latest dependencies to make sure the code can be run more securely. Now, please test and debug the application by clicking the play button. For some reason, the HTTPS folder may be missing. Please create the directory by typing mkdir %appdata% link to ASP.NET HTTPS to create the folder for key generation. After this, the program can be run and debugged on your local PC. This application is extremely simple and easy to follow. For more details about datum transformation, you can refer to the Marine Department in Hong Kong. I actually converted this application from legacy VB6 to .NET 3 years ago. Next, I will move on to the password vault implementation in the .NET Core example. In this example, I added a vault section in the application configuration. We can put the token, vault path, and vault server address here. At the same time, the default connection string can be removed if the vault address is entered. For details on how to use the password vault, please refer to the video I recorded in the last YouTube session. As shown in the screen, I will test if it works by testing in the Swagger UI. If one of the endpoints runs properly and returns data, that means the setting with the password vault can retrieve credentials from the vault server properly and the connection string is empty now. The code itself will get credentials from the vault server if the vault address is not empty. Otherwise, it will get the connection string from app settings, JSON. Next, let's explain how it works. I wrote a generic function which can execute an async function in a non-async block. This may be useful for some code that has to be initialized in link to program.cs. I just used function overloading to allow us to have some cases that run the async function with or without returning a value. Lastly, let's explain why the Angular frontend can call the backend API in debug mode. By using proxy conference.js, we can redirect the web request for all API calls to the Visual Studio backend debugging page. This only works in development. When the SPA is built for production, the API calls are handled by a reverse proxy in the web server. The proxy conference.js is just for development use. That's the end of the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed viewing it, and I'll see you next time.